Really nice to see you all here again. Sorry, it's been so long that my setup is a little wonky. Okay. Hi, how are you? Some of you will be new here to my channel. Some of you have remained subscribed even though I don't go live anymore. I just didn't want to share my energy with so many people. I found it draining. I found that it attracted a lot of bullies, and this can happen when you're an awakened person, when you're confident in yourself, when you speak the truth, and when you know the truth. You can attract a lot of unhealed people who just want to put you down. And I was done with attracting those kind of people. I want to talk today about why I adopted the Quaker faith and how I healed myself. Sometimes it's one and the same. When you adopt a new faith, it can be very healing for you. But for me, I healed myself before I adopted the Quaker faith. In fact, I realized that I've always been a Quaker at heart, and I just did not know it. For years, my son, who is now 16 years old, he wanted us to adopt a religion. We took our time figuring out what kind of religion that might be. We already knew what we didn't want to do. And again, I'm not bashing any religion. I'm just talking about why it didn't work for my son and I. We knew we didn't want to be Catholic. We had experienced some very, very bad Catholic people in our lives. People who literally ruined our lives and bullied us and stole from us. And they were so devout in their faith. Churchgoers, even. We found this very confusing, so we knew we didn't want to be a part of that community. Again, we also know some very wonderful Catholics. They're just fewer and farther between in our experience. Again, I'm not bashing your faith if you're a Catholic. I'm just saying it wasn't right for us because of our personal experiences. I grew up with Anglican parents who did not treat me as an equal. I was treated as basically the bottom of the rung in the family, so I didn't feel that the Anglican faith was for us either. My son has the right to make his own choices, but he did ask me for help in choosing our religion because he trusts me. He trusts me because I have always treated him as an equal. I have always praised him when he does well. I've always been honest with him and apologized when I've made a mistake. That is huge. If you cannot apologize to your own family members when you make a mistake, what kind of connection can you possibly have? What kind of trust can you possibly build within that connection? You can't. So this is why my son trusts me, because we have a very open, honest relationship. A lot of people don't understand what openness and honesty truly means. Well, I'll tell you, the Quaker faith does. I remember years ago, my son and I experienced something quite scary. We were out on the street and a person bumped into my son while he was eating one of our homemade popsicles. It was a very hot summer day, so I gave him a homemade popsicle and we went outside to play, and we were walking along the street. This popsicle was made of blackberries. As you all know, blackberries can stain, right? So this person was rushing past us and bumped into my son, which caused his popsicle to almost fall, and it touched this person's white garment. That person got so upset that they grabbed my son, who was only 4 years old at the time, and shook him, and I screamed, and then they ran away. I called the police. The police did find the individual, and we went to court. I went to court. My son didn't have to go because I was the witness. When I was in court, the judge asked me to swear in. This is the first time I had ever experienced having to be sworn in. And the judge said, "Which Bible do you want to swear on?" And I said, "I don't want any. I'm not of any of those faiths, you know." He said, "Well, he got frustrated. He said, "You got to pick one." I said, "Listen, I'm going to tell the truth. I swear to you that I'm going to tell the truth. I don't need to swear on the Bible." And he got upset. He said, "You have to. You have to. What are you, a Quaker?" And at that time, I didn't know what a Quaker was. The only thing I knew was I pictured the Quaker Oats man on the Quaker Oat packages. And I said, "No." He said, "Then pick a Bible." So I picked the Christian Bible and I swore in. It wouldn't be until years later that I would know what that truly meant. And that was just proof that I was a Quaker at heart already and did not know it. Okay, so fast forward to the year 2025, this past summer. I was watching a Netflix show. It was a British investigator type of a drama. It was called Paranoid. And in this show, there was a female character, and I really liked her. And she said, "Well, I'm a Quaker. I wasn't always, but the life that I was living before was toxic, and that's why I adopted the Quaker faith." So that got me interested because I really fell in love with her as a character and her beliefs and what it showed in this show about who Quakers are and what they do. So I started looking into it more, and I did a whole lot of research. By the way, once this video finishes processing, I will be adding some links in the description box. I might also put them in the comments section just so they're easy for people to find, because I don't want to get into the history of Quakerism. It's quite vast, and it goes really, really far back to the 17th century. So there is one documentary here on YouTube called Quakers, the Silent Revolutionaries, and that is very informative, and I do encourage you all to watch it if you're interested. So anyways, I did all this research, and then I looked for where we could go find the Quakers in our city. I live in Toronto. So I found that there was one very close by to us, actually. They are called friends' houses, not churches. And you go there for meetings. So I said to Oric, "I think I have found the religion for us, but let's just go check it out and see." And he agreed. So we went to the friend's house. I didn't know what to expect. I had some concerns, mostly about my appearance, because I like a little bit of flair. I don't overdo my flair, but I do like to have color in my hair, and maybe even a little bit on my face. So I was concerned because the Quakers have they don't have the golden rules or the commandments, because they don't believe in commanding anybody to do anything. But they have these affirmations called the spices, and each letter represents something, the spices. Let's see if I can remember it. S is for simplicity. P is for peace. I is for integrity. C is for community. E is for, I think it's equality. Again, watch the documentary to be sure. I'm a pretty new Quaker, so I might be forgetting something. And then the final S is for stewardship, meaning stewardship of the earth. We are human beings living on this planet, and we are responsible to keep the planet healthy and safe for all. I loved all of those affirmations. Like I said, healed myself before I adopted the Quaker faith, and what I found was peace, inner peace. I've always been connected to my inner light because I'm a psychic, I'm a born psychic, but a lot of those gifts were taken away from me because my family lied to me, my family manipulated me, and so did a lot of the people I called friends around me. And that can really toy with a person's intuition. But I didn't truly know what that meant. And you don't have to be a psychic to be connected to your inner light, but that's just it. We are all born connected to our inner light. And the Quakers believe that our inner light is all we need to worship. We don't need a preacher in the Quaker faith. There are some friends meetings in the US where they do have a preacher, but it's different than in any other church. In the Friends House here in Toronto, it is truly simplistic where you go in, you sit on a chair in a room with all of the other people in silence, complete silence. And the worship means you connect to your inner light because you can get a direct message from God. God is within all of us. And I've always said that. I've always said you don't have to go to church to connect to God. You don't have to listen to a preacher to understand the Word of God because we are all God. And what we noticed in the meeting, and they did explain it, that you can break the silence if you have something to say. If you receive a message from God, that should be shared with the group. And I found this beautiful. So in essence, we can share messages rather than preach. There is no preaching to the choir. It's all about sharing, and it's all about peace. I can't think of anything more beautiful and more peaceful and more loving than that. Well, my son and I were blown away, and my concerns about my personal flair were calmed immediately because what we found, I was in a mobility scooter at the time. I've since received surgery. I'm actually still healing from my surgery, and I won't need the mobility scooter to get there. We can actually walk there now. But what I found was it was very accommodating. It was wheelchair accessible, and oh, I've gone off topic here. Let me think. Yes. So we arrived at the friend's house, but we didn't know where the wheelchair access was. So I got my son to go up the stairs and knock on the door and ask someone how I could get in with my mobility scooter. And the first person that we met, she came out and she guided us around the house to where the wheelchair access was. She said that she was, her name was, I think, Roxanne, and she was the daycare worker there. She had bright pink hair, dyed bright pink hair. I said, okay, my flair will be okay here. Being simplistic doesn't have to mean boring, okay? But one thing that I did notice among the people there was nobody was wearing makeup, which I found beautiful. They also didn't judge me for having my eyebrows drawn on and a little bit of lipstick. They don't judge you, period. What it says on their sign in front of every friend's house is all are welcome, and all truly are welcome. Another thing I noticed about all of the people that I met there, nobody had insecurities. Nobody was in competition with you. This is something that I noticed in every other church I have ever been to with my friends over my lifetime. I'm 55 years old now, so believe me, I've lived a lifetime and I've suffered a lot. And what I found at the friend's house was none of those problems existed. When people have insecurities, they want to compete with others. They want to be the more beautiful one. They want to be the more godly one. Well, I go to church every Sunday and so only comes once in a while. You don't get that at the friend's house. My son and I have not been back to a friend's meeting since the summertime because we both got sick, and then I had to deal with, some dental issues. I've been going through a lot of different surgeries, mostly dental surgeries and my lower pelvic floor surgery as of recent. And they're all understanding of that. There were some people who showed up and would speak after the silence was done, an hour of silence. How beautiful. It's basically you're meditating in a room with other people. So simple and so beautiful. But after the meditation, people will stand up and say something and introduce themselves. Some people were visiting Toronto from the US saying, I'm from this chapter in this state, and while I'm visiting in Toronto, we wanted to come to the friend's house here. And everyone says, oh, it's so nice to see you. We remember you from last year. And other people said, I haven't been to a friend's meeting in a while, but here I am. I was going through a lot and I'm so happy to be back. And no one expects you to go regularly. You can even do it online. They are not opposed to technology as people might think. The Quakers are not the Amish. I found a lot of people said, what, like the Amish? You're allowed to have electricity, blah, blah, blah. It's nothing like that. Again, I urge you to watch the documentary link that I'm going to post in the description box and the comment section below. Okay, so having said that, this was the perfect religion for us. We are not official members. It takes a lot to become a member. They don't just want to blindly bring people in as a member. You do have to write to the clerks. There are people who are clerks of the Quaker group and state why you want to be a member. But you don't have to be a member to be accepted into the Quaker community or to say that you are a Quaker. I'm just so pleased because I can just be myself. I could walk into a Quaker meeting and then have tea and snacks with them afterwards and converse with everybody, and everyone is so accepting, and each and every conversation that you have with a stranger or someone you even met the week before is genuine conversation, no judgment. They might ask you, do you like poetry? And I would answer, not really, but then you'd find something to talk about. That's another thing I really liked is they're very literate people. They love their books. They have a vast library there, and that's something my son really enjoyed because I raised a reader. Even though I'm not a big reader myself, I read with him religiously as he was growing up. And so he's a very well-read young man. He's an honor student, and I did homeschool him for a while, which I was judged harshly for among my family and friend group. Not all of them, but the majority of them, you know. But in the Quaker community, they looked at this as a wonderful thing. And wow, that's great, you know, and you did a great job. I never once heard from anyone in my own family, you did a great job schooling him. You did a great job raising him. Why? Because there's competition. They were afraid and had that insecurity that maybe I did a better job at raising my child than they did at raising me. But I didn't say that. I wasn't in competition. I just wanted to do the best for my child. That's all. And the people of the Quaker community saw that. And I thought that it was like a breath of fresh air. Truly all are welcome and truly all are accepted. Another big question that people have is, can you drink alcohol? Can you smoke cigarettes? Addiction is something that the Quakers do not have. They feel they won't judge you if you want to have an alcoholic beverage, but you do it on your own time. There is no alcohol at all welcome in the Friends meetings. There is no, for example, in the Catholic community, you will drink wine, the blood of Christ, and eat the wafer, the flesh of Christ. There are no rituals involved. It's not simplistic, and it's not necessary. I found that beautiful. I've never been a fan of alcohol. Did I drink it? Yes, a lot in my 20s in order to fit in with my friends. It seemed that was the thing you had to do, and it made me very sick. I often found myself in the emergency room with alcohol poisoning, even after just 2 drinks. It was like Russian roulette with me. Was I going to drink and have a good time, or was I going to drink and end up in the hospital? Who knows? But I found it was the only way I could relate to the people I was celebrating with. Well, these days I realize that celebration means I'm happy to be alive. I could go to a Quaker meeting and have conversations even without my dentures in, and they wouldn't look at me any differently. If I had no makeup, no dentures, no flair, mushrooms helped me a lot. Greg, I was suicidal depressed, and I did a lot of research. I couldn't find a good psychiatrist. I'm just talking to someone in the live chat here for people watching in the replay. So I didn't want to go back on the meds. My family always made me go on for my depression because they couldn't support me. Really, I just needed to remove myself from my family. I haven't spoken to my family in 4 years, and I've never felt more peace in my life. But what ultimately changed my neurotransmitters and relaxed my nervous system was microdosing magic mushrooms. I found a place that sold the chocolate bars. I had it delivered, and all I needed was 1 square of chocolate a day for 5 days. 5 days I microdosed. Permanent fix. I've never had to go back again. So yes, Greg, I'm not afraid to talk about these things on my channel. I have in the past done other live collaborations. I've just hidden all of those videos for now. I'm slowly reintegrating some of the videos I've recorded over the past 4 years if I feel they're going to be helpful, or if they show my artistic expression. Like I said earlier, I'm a psychic. I did a lot of tarot card readings here live on this channel. In fact, I would do up to 2 a day. It's not necessary. And in fact, now that I have reconnected with myself and found peace, I don't even need the cards anymore. I still do tarot readings, but I get psychic messages now for myself and sometimes for others without the cards at all. And yes, I do believe that microdosing magic mushrooms can help people with a lot of different things. Be careful, do your research, and don't feel you have to do it for the rest of your life. Like I said, for me, it just took 5 days. And that was 4 years ago that I did that. And thank you for telling me all about your experience, Greg. That's very brave of you. I love it when people are brave and they're not afraid to talk about their addictions. You see, I also have COPD now because of my smoking addiction. But nobody in the Quaker Faith will judge you for that. You know, the interesting thing I found is that my family judged me for smoking, but I got the smoking addiction from them, from my father mainly, but my father was worshipped, and he was never judged for smoking. He was never judged for getting his COPD from smoking because he worked in a foundry, and it could have come from the foundry too, and he worked so hard, and anyone who works in a foundry breaks their back. It is back-breaking work. But hard work comes in many forms. Just because I didn't work in a foundry doesn't mean I didn't work hard or suffer. I found it very interesting how one person could be berated for the same addiction that another has in a family unit. It does not make any sense. I believe in equality. I believe in integrity, and integrity means telling the truth. Integrity means not being afraid to talk about your addictions, and it also means don't judge others. If you want to judge anyone or get mad at anyone for these addictions, get mad at the people who make these substances available to us, the tobacco companies, the alcohol companies. Is alcohol necessary? I don't think so. But I'm not going to judge someone if they want to have a drink on their birthday or a toast on New Year's Eve. I don't, because I don't feel it's necessary or healthy for me. In fact, if you ask me, I think alcohol is more dangerous than smoking. I'm not saying I'm right about that. It's just my psychic and personal belief. Because also, practically speaking, I have seen people end up with cancer faster from alcoholism than I have with smokers. Statistically, I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Ultimately, how I healed myself before I adopted the Quaker Faith just helps me maintain that loving, healing vibe and helps me maintain that connection to my inner light, which has now freed me from even needing tarot cards to give a psychic message. But what healed me was, yes, the microdosing got me away from the suicidal thoughts, but it was also removing myself from people who couldn't be honest with me, from people who bullied me, from people who didn't have enough integrity to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, and I'm so proud of you for doing better than me. Is that really so hard? Yes, it's hard for some people, but to be compassionate does not mean you should risk your own health and sanity. So removing myself from my family and a lot of my friends is what healed me. It was very difficult to do because I love by nature. I am such a highly loving and compassionate person. Unconditional love. Even if you've hurt me, I will eventually forgive, right? No more. I realized it was too much. It was being wasted and I wasn't loving myself. If you don't have self-love, you don't have anything. And self-love is often misinterpreted. So, I'm going to, having said that, add another link, something that has nothing to do with Quakers, but it's Alan Watts, and Alan Watts was not perfect. He had addictions. He often was seen drunk in the streets of England, you know. Anyways, Alan Watts's messages on YouTube, I've posted a couple of them in my community post section. He speaks with truth and integrity and will help guide you if you feel you need to remove yourself from friends, family, or even a faith that no longer serves you because it's full of competition and judgment. I feel that watching the Alan Watts videos can help you with that. So I will also add a link to his channel, but again, I've posted in my community section some of his videos that I find helpful. And no, he's not a Quaker. It's a separate thing altogether. But if you were looking for a faith that is different from Catholicism or Anglican or whatever, you know, the Quaker Faith is a Christian denomination. But again, they actually put their money where their mouth is. They were among the first abolitionists. They truly help people. They put boots to the pavement and do the work. Again, I urge you, just even if you're curious who the Quakers are, because not a lot of people do know who the Quakers are and what they're about, please watch the documentary that I'm going to post. Now, I'm doing this live in the morning before I wake up my cockatiel. My cockatiel is quite loud in the morning. You know, birds are like that. She's a bird. She's a bird. But she likes to be on my head and she likes to be loud in the morning. So now it's time to go and wake her up and take her out of her cage for the next 10 hours. I have her out and free for 10 hours a day. And it's time to wake her up and let her be free. So I'm going to stop this live now, but give the opportunity if anybody is watching and you want to ask me a question while we're here live, go ahead now. Will I go live again? I don't know. We'll see. But today is New Year's Eve. And for 2026, if there's anything that you want to change, if you feel uncomfortable in your life, something that I might have said here could help you. But why not, instead of making a resolution, just make changes for yourself that will help you gain a life with more peace. And do something to help somebody else have more peace. Release expectations. Oh yeah, this is another thing I wanted to mention. It's quite interesting. I met a neighbor in my building. I live with hundreds of other people. which I don't like. There's not an awful lot of peace where I live, and that's also why we like that refuge of the friend's house where we can sit in silence. It's hard to find silence in this world, especially when you live in a concrete jungle in downtown Toronto. But I met this neighbor, and he seemed very nice, and I helped him with a spiritual matter for free. I didn't charge him. And he started texting me a lot, and I thought, okay, maybe he just really needs a friend. And he said, "What are you doing right now?" I said, "I'm knitting. I'm doing this project. I'm making all of these little squares, and I'm going to sew them together when I have 100 of them and make an afghan." So I said, "I'm knitting right now." And he said, "Oh, you know, men don't say it, but men think that women who knit are sexy." And I thought, oh God, here we go. I've bought myself a new wardrobe over the last 4 years and got rid of the old things that had bad memories attached. And I thought, I also don't want anything that necessarily makes me look sexy. I don't want anyone looking at me as a sexy woman, because I found that just attracted false connections or certain expectations. I'm not about that. And oddly, people were finding me sexier afterwards, the more covered up I was. Because what is truly sexy is confidence. Anyways, I replied to his comment by saying, "Well, I suppose that would depend on the man, because I don't believe that what he said is true. I don't believe that men generally think women who knit are sexy. I would say people in general think it's a practical and creative thing." But I also thought maybe he's saying that because it's his way of trying to tell me he thinks I'm sexy. And this is no longer about friendship or neighborly friendliness. So I wanted to just be very clear. And I said, and also, I'm not interested in coming across as sexy to anybody, which I felt was a wonderful way to just state that without saying, I'm not interested in you. It wasn't like that, right? And after I said that, he started treating me differently, and now I can't even be his friend anymore. We have to learn to recognize people as beautiful. Everybody is beautiful. Sexual attraction is not shunned upon. In fact, that's important in a healthy romantic relationship. But in any other sense of any other connection, the word sex shouldn't come into it, or sexual attraction should not come into it. To be beautiful is to be connected with your inner light, because that's what shines out. That's what people see as attractive. There's a difference between being an attractive and lovely person than being a sexy or sexual person. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people, that's who they are, and that's who they want to be. And they make it very clear by how they dress that that's how they do want to be looked at. They do want someone to say, "Wow, you look sexy today," but that's not me. And nothing about the way I dress says, tell me that I'm sexy. You know what I mean? So if you feel uncomfortable with anybody saying that they like that you're a certain way, but you don't feel that that's the impression you want to give off, be clear about that. And then you won't waste your time giving to people who want you around for a different reason. I hope I'm finding my words here. And again, I am not shunning anyone or bashing anyone, because I believe we are all created equal, but the best thing you can be is connected to your inner light, and that's what shines bright, and that's what will attract genuine connections of all kinds. What we want is to be genuine and of integrity. That's what's most important. It truly is. Everything else is just superficial. And I only wish you all the best. I wish you a good, happy new year, but the only way to truly be happy is to be connected with your inner light and not be reliant upon addictions. It doesn't mean you can't have these things once in a while, but it's truly what's going to give you peace and health. Okay, but aren't you telling me how to feel as well, Raminato? Raminato is saying, no, don't speak for others, speak for yourself. What I want is to be Jesus's vessel. Aren't we all Jesus's vessel? If I'm connected to my inner light and I get the word of God while in a silent meeting with the other Quakers, is that not being a vessel for Jesus? So I don't know. I think you're being quite negative. I'm just going to say that. All right, I'm going to go wake up my bird now, and I'm going to have a lovely day, and I wish you all the best. I've forgotten how to stop the live here. Okay.